Let me go back to this issue of the political future for the people of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. You mentioned all of the criminals and the people let out of prisons that were sent to our borders in our country. That's Tren de Aragua. That's cartel members.
Some of the worst criminals in the world were let into our country.
Known terror ties.
Biden's open border policy. Anybody could come in.
And that will get into the issue of Minneapolis going on right now. But back to this one issue, do you foresee a Venezuela that will have free and fair elections? And I would have little doubt that the opposition would probably win handily if they were free and if they were fair.
Yeah, I do see that. I think that's happening. But before we do that, it's going to take a while to do. We have to rebuild the country. They couldn't have an election. They wouldn't even know how to have an election right now. The country's become third world, and they wouldn't know how to have an election right now. We're going to rebuild the oil and the oil infrastructure. We'll be in charge of it. It's going to do great. It'll make a lot of money. And we're going to take it from there, but we're going to rebuild the country, and ultimately you're going to have elections.
When you talk about increasing defense spending, and I go back to the campaign, and I go back to your first term, foreign policy usually doesn't get a lot of discussion. And in many ways, you have dedicated a lot of time, energy, and resources.
Very important for our country.
How is that in America's first interest? Because that's what you stand for.
Well, like the Middle East was blowing up when I got in. It was everybody was fighting everybody, which, in all fairness, has been going on for about 3,000 years in the Middle East. And we now have peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was possible. But you have some great countries, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and many other countries that have been around a long time. They're very wealthy. They were, in many ways, put out of business. They weren't able to do business. Tremendous wealth for the world. The oil supply was hurt. Everything was hurt. I mean, you had things happening in the Middle East that were bad, not only in Gaza with the death and the destruction going on for years. And it's been cleaned up. It's amazing. It's been cleaned up. Now, there'll be some remnants right now. We're going to have to see what happens with Hamas. We're going to have to see what happens with Hezbollah and Lebanon. But we have 59 countries that signed on, and they want to go in and help if we should have to do something with Hamas, which is a possibility. I think they're going to do what they said they were going to do. They were going to disarm, but they've been armed for a long time.
They've been a little slow to disarm.
Yeah, they've been a little bit slow.
Will you support Israel? Will you put them on a timetable?
Well, I would, but first we'll see whether or not they're going to be disarming. Look, I'm all for it if they don't. They made the promise that they were.
If they don't.
They've made an agreement that they're going to disarm, so we're going to have to assume that they're going to, but, it's not their nature to disarm. It's not exactly their nature. Hezbollah's been very bad in Lebanon. But overall, I mean, we have an amazing situation compared to what it was, and we really do have peace in the Middle East. And I will say Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and other countries have been amazing. They've been, so helpful in getting it done. But the biggest thing was the attack on Iran. If you had a strong Iran, a respected Iran, a powerful Iran, like I guess it was at one point, a year and a half ago, you wouldn't have been able to make peace because the other countries wouldn't have been able to have that dark cloud hanging over them. And they, by knocking out their nuclear potential, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 months. By knocking that's why I had to go in.
Yeah.
Every president wanted to go in, and none of them did.
You mean you didn't want to send cargo planes of cash and other currency?
No, it's terrible. I mean, I've never seen hundreds of millions of dollars were sent in cash on Boeing 757s, beautiful Boeing 7. They opened, the cash was piled up to the ceiling. I never even knew a president could do that. How do you do that? What do you do? Call the banks? They emptied out every bank in Virginia and Maryland to get that cash, and they sent it over there and gave it to them. No, we took the opposite approach, exactly the opposite approach.
Are you following the protesting that is taking place all over the country of Iran
now?
Yeah,
I'm following it very closely.
And have you read that the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has a plan B to go to Russia?
Or someplace, yeah. He's looking to go someplace.
Do you believe that Iran, you think the country is on the verge of collapsing?
Well, it could be. I mean, what they've done is in the past, they've started shooting the hell out of people, and all of a sudden people without any weapons whatsoever are standing there and you have machine guns gunning them down, or they take them to prisons and then hang them and kill them. So they played rough, and I said, if they do that, we're going to hit them very hard. Well, we're going to hit them hard. We're ready to do it. If they do that, we're going to hit them hard. And so far, for the most part, there's been some of it, but for the most part, they haven't. There have been people killed. Some of them, the crowds are so big that some of them have had really, like, were stomped on. Literally, it was terrible. The crowds are just, they're massive. The enthusiasm to overturn that regime is incredible. But there's been people killed, but it's more from death by, it's literally stomping. It's people running in a certain direction. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens over there. They know, though, that it's a stampede, is, I guess, the best word. They have like a stampede. You talk about stampede for cattle. But the people are stampeding, and you're losing a lot of people with the stampedes. There's so many people protesting. Nobody's ever seen anything like what's happening right now. But I have put Iran on notice that if they start shooting at them, these people are totally unarmed people. And they love their country. They want something to happen. Look at their country. They've gone back 150 years. But I've told them that if they do anything bad to these people, we're going to hit them very hard.
So if there is mass murder by the Iranian Ayatollahs and those leadership, you're pledging to the people of Iran that you will come to their aid.
I've said it very loud and very clear. Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
I have this hat. I guess you were playing golf with Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, I did that for Lindsey Graham. He
it says "Make Iran Great Again."
And what he means by that, because I said, this is a little tricky hat.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to sign this hat?
I don't know.
He's
Can
really
I auction
talking
this
about
off on eBay?
riots.
Can I sell this?
Yeah,
it's probably worth a lot of money.
It's got my signature.
Yeah.
No, but he asked me to sign that. I said, you know, there's a lot of definitions for that. And what he's talking about is the people that are, you know, protesting, I guess is the only word you can use. It's really the biggest protest I've ever seen. The people that are protesting, if they take over the country, he wants to see if Iran can be great again. You know, years ago, a friend of mine was a developer from New York, and I was a young developer, and he went to Iran, and he built buildings in Iran, and he made a lot of money, and he did very well. And it was like condos and rentals, and he loved Iran. He thought it was great. And he did a lot of work there. He did a tremendous amount of work. He loved the people. He thought they were so incredible. And then it all stopped when this stuff started happening.
In 1979.
Yeah,
then
it stopped like magic.
444 days, Americans held hostage.
Yeah, that was right. It was not a good time for Jimmy Carter. It wasn't a good time for
America.
His politics.
No, didn't work out very well for anybody. If, in fact...
Well, you know, I think about that, though, if I could interrupt, because, you know, when we were going into the middle of Venezuela with helicopters landing in an army fort where you have thousands of soldiers and you have people with guns all over the place, I thought so much about that Jimmy Carter catastrophe. We had so many hostages taken, American hostages. We had the helicopters crashing. You had the sandstorms. If you had sandstorms, you should come back.
Yeah.
But they tried to blast through the sandstorm. Nature always wins, remember?
Not with a helicopter.
Nature always wins. Mm-hmm. And helicopters don't have that kind of an engine. You know, there are a lot of moving parts. They don't like sand blowing into their gears. But anyway, they decided to go forward. I should have come back. But I was thinking about that because, you know, here we are going into actually a much more dangerous situation. If you think about it, on Venezuela, we're in a fort, a military army fort, and the house was built there for protection. And we're going in with helicopters, with jets, with helicopters. I mean, the jets preceded the helicopters and did an unbelievable... These are unbelievably talented pilots and people, and very brave people. So I was thinking a lot about the Jimmy Carter thing. I don't know what he would have done or how he would have done if that didn't happen, but there are those that say that destroyed his chances of winning election and, you know, lost that election pretty big. He might have lost it anyway, perhaps, but there was no question after that mess. And I was saying, boy, I hope that doesn't happen with me. But we have Raising Cane and all of these great people, and they did an unbelievable job.
You know, you started in your first term the Abraham Accords.
Right.
And I would argue beyond Israel, it's other countries in the region, Egypt, Jordan, the Saudis, and pretty much every country,
Right.
that they probably were breathing a sigh of relief, as well as the Israelis, because they didn't want Iranian hegemony in the region and a nuclear-armed Iran.
Well, you had to stop that. You had no choice. And it should have been done long before I got there. It should have been done earlier. They just, you look back and Obama should have done it. They all should have done it. Clinton should have done it. Obama went the other way. I mean, Obama decided to go with Iran. I mean, I don't know how Jewish people can vote for Biden and Obama. They were absolutely on the side of Iran. They were against
Or
Jewish
Mamdani,
people. Well, we're going to find out.
your favorite
about it.
mayor.
Well, I have a very nice relationship, but I thought it would take at least maybe a month or 2 months before he went after me. He hit me on the attack on Venezuela, which is pretty unusual because not too many people have hit us. That was a perfect attack. Think of what we've done. I mean, we've taken over a whole country. We're going to make the country strong and good, and we're going to ultimately be able to vote and put somebody in that they like. The oil that we've taken $4 billion worth of oil in one day, and that'll increase. We're going to have it rebuilt. All the big oil companies are coming in. They're going to make a lot of money, and Venezuela's going to get some of that money, and we're going to get some of that money. And we brought stability to the region. We brought stability and much lower oil prices. You know, we have gasoline now down to, in many cases, $1.99 a gallon. And with
6 or 7
Biden, it was
states.
$4.50, $5. We have it we've brought it way down. We've done a great job. On the word affordability, prices are way down. They're going to go lower. Prices, you know, everything follows oil. Oil is so big. Everything follows oil. If oil prices are down, everything's down. I mean, you can look
Cost
at
of
solar,
everything
because
goes
it's
lower.
just, it affects everything. It affects a truck that delivers donuts. It affects the stove that makes the donuts. It affects everything.
2 more issues on foreign policy and national security. Then I do want to do a deep dive into the economy. I want to ask you,
The
I don't
economy is unbelievable.
We're going to get to that.
I know, but it's unbelievable.
Can
before you
Cuba
even-
survive without Venezuelan oil? I don't see how it can.
Can who survive?
Cuba.
No, Cuba totally relies on Venezuela for money and for oil, and they give Venezuela protection. That was always the deal. They're very tough. They're good soldiers. They got wiped out, as you know.
Yeah.
3 days ago, wiped out. I don't want to even say how many, but they got wiped out. But Cuba gives protection to Venezuela, and Venezuela gives Cuba money through oil.
Yeah.
And it's worked that way for a long time.
You talked
But
about.
it doesn't work that way anymore. So I don't know what Cuba's going to do. I think Cuba's going to fail. I don't think there are any alternatives for Cuba.
I don't know how they survive without Venezuelan
We have
energy.
great people from Cuba. Marco Rubio is great. He knows Cuba very well.
Some people said, somebody told me today it was Marco's revenge.
Well, maybe it was, but they a lot of great people.
Yeah.
A lot of great people. We'll see what happens.
Well, you live in South
We want
Florida.
to do something to help Cuba.
Yeah. Let me, you mentioned Vladimir Putin.
You know who the Cubans I want to help? I want to help the Cubans in the United States that got treated so badly by Castro. Because we have a lot of Cuban population here. We have some of the best people in the country, Cuban. And I want to help those people. They got treated so badly. They left on rafts and and they got just thrown out.
Broken down.
Those people are going to be taken care of.
Broken down, dilapidated, rickety boats, shark-infested waters, inner tubes, because things were so bad there.
They came in in the worst floating vessels that there have ever been, and circled by sharks and everything else. And many of them, as you know, many of them didn't make it.
You talked about peace and your involvement around the globe and the success that you've had. You said many times that you thought the easiest conflict to resolve would be the European conflict, Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And now you pointed out many times that it became the most difficult. A couple of things on that issue. Vladimir Putin, we did take out this Russian flag tanker along with Great Britain.
Right.
Tough decision. number one. Number two,
I didn't think it was a tough decision.
will you support the sanctions bill? I think there are 84 or 5 senators that want.
Yeah, they only do it if it's subject to me, and I support it.
You support it.
I hope we don't have to use it. And we have big sanctions on Russia right now.
Yeah.
Russia's economy is very bad, but they are much bigger than Ukraine. They're a much bigger, more powerful country from that
Did
standpoint.
Vladimir call you after this tanker was seized?
I don't want to say that, but the fact is that the Russian ships, it was a submarine and a destroyer, they both left very quickly when we arrived. And we took over the ship, and the oil is being unloaded right now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.